Recently, we've had a surge in JDM car prices. Many are asking, is it just a bubble? Or do Japanese cars still have room to appreciate? So in this video, we're going to try to make some sense out of all this using numbers and science. Now, first off, we'll focus purely on an investment point of view. Whether you like European, American, Japanese, manual, automatic, inline 6, V8, V12, or whatever. It's all subjective, and we will put the personal taste and preferences aside. Also for this study, we will purely focus on post-1990 cars. Okay, so what are the most expensive and collectible Japanese cars? Just as reference, we know the pre-90s Toyota 2000 GT, KPG C110 Kenmari GTR, and Datsun 432R are all fetching good money. But what if we focus back to modern times? There are only a few cars. From Nismo, we present the R33 400R, 44 made and fetching around $800,000. Then its younger brother, the R34 Z-Tune, possibly the ultimate JDM car with only 20 made. There are no real transaction data, but we have seen offers easily reaching $2 million. Now, we're still in Nissan with the recent R35 GTR Ital design to celebrate 50 years of GTR. 50 will ever be made and still selling today at around $1.2 million. Last, we have the Lexus LFA Nürburgring Edition. 50 made and recent auction results getting around $1 million. That is it. Only 163 cars are in the higher dollar region fetching good money. So, to put things in perspective, let's look at what the rest of the world is doing. Please forgive us if we miss out on anything, but here is our attempt to list out all the $1 million plus special or limited edition sports cars. It is a long list, and we reckon the tally is roughly 10,128 cars. Now, these are the super desirable billionaire collectors' cars, right? Look at Shami's garage visits. You will see these cars over and over again. No, we are not high on paint thinner. A Nissan or a Lexus badge will never be as prestigious nor iconic as McLaren or Ferrari. But let's look purely at the numbers. There are 7.6 billion people or so. Now, let's assume 10,000 petrol heads that have $1 million plus to spend. And out of those, let's say 95% are into traditional collectible brands, and 5% are hardcore Japanese car fans. With this assumption, there are 9,500 people going after 10,128 cars, versus 500 people going for 163 cars. In other words, one person is fighting for one car from the rest of the world, versus 3 people are fighting for each Japanese car. Now, remember, the majority collectors over here, who are they? We're not trying to stereotype, but most likely the usual bankers, property tycoons, oil field owners, retail giants, doctors, lawyers, etc. Their parents and even grandparents might already have a long-term strong relationship with some of the makers. Monaco F1 parties, Pebble Beach, Goodwood festivals, yacht clubs, and golf courses, these are their usual hangouts. So to this group of collectors, made in Japan might have a very negative connotation. As the generation X, Y, Z grow older, some of this preconception might be diminishing and shifting in favor of the Japanese cars. Teens have spent many hours on PlayStation, Gran Turismo tuning Japanese cars. In Japan, there is the Best Motoring series that helped to popularize JDM sports cars. Initial D Comics successfully glorified the art of mountain drifting. The Fast franchise pretty much put this very car culture into a world with billions of views. And don't forget, during this era, Japanese car makers were doing quite well in motorsports too. Williams and McLaren, using Honda engines, have won 6 straight F1 Constructor Championships from 1986 to 1991. Mazda won Le Mans in 1991 in the iconic 787B. Toyota, Subaru, and Mitsubishi dominated the World Rally Championship in the 90s. So if you grew up in this post-1980 era, made in Japan might not sound too bad at all. and buyers have always been very nostalgic. They are buying what they couldn't afford 10 or 20 years ago. With no shortage of these memories, we are definitely seeing a paradigm shift from here to here. And now you can also see it as a simple case of supply and demand. There are simply less Japanese iconic cars to go around. And if our assumption is true, and there is a conservative 10% shift in the future, you're looking at 8,500 people after 10,128 cars versus 1,500 people fighting for 163 cars. Each person has 1.2 cars to choose from the rest of the world versus 10 people fighting for each Japanese car. Take these two for example. The Carrera GT, in our opinion, is the best driver's car ever. Fantastic V10 mated to a manual gearbox. Modern Porsche technology and reliability. The clutch might be a little tricky to set off, but other than that, this car is pure driving nirvana. The LFA NER also has a lovely V10, but it is let down by this single-plate clutch actuated gearbox. Now today, both are worth around the $1 million mark. And to be honest, the Carrera GT will be remembered as the most complete package manual V10 driver's car of an era. But why the price similarity? Simple supply and demand. 1,270 versus 50. So just for this example, if you have $1 million to spend to drive and enjoy possibly the best driver's car ever, buy the Carrera GT. But if you are purely in as an investment, you should buy the LFA NER just because of its rarity. It is still a very, very good car. And who can forget Han kissing Wonder Woman inside a LFA in the Fast 4 ending? Other than supply and demand, there is the motorsport affiliation factor. Looking back in history, the most valuable road cars usually won that race in France that lasts 24 hours. You are now looking at the most iconic, ultimate extreme example. Hence, the McLaren F1 tops the chart at $20 million US. This car won its very first attempt in 1995. This is the ultimate collectible road car, period. Now, remember a certain very whiny sounding orange and green car? Hey, that won Le Mans 2 in 1991, being the first Japanese manufacturer ever to do so. While McLaren obviously has the same F1 as a road car, what does Mazda have as the brand's signature dish? Yes, the only distant family relative to the 787B is the RX-7 Spirit R Type A. Yes, we are not drunk and we can hear many of you screaming, how dare you to compare an F1 to a RX-7? Well, just bear with us. McLaren F1 is around $20 million. Versus a nice FD3S Spirit R Type A is $100,000. So one of these can buy 200 of these. Many of you are still screaming, of course, get the F1. Why would I want 200 RX-7s? Yes, you are right, because you are in the 95%, as we mentioned. To all car fanatics, it is just a matter of time before they connect the dots together. Mazda 24-hour Le Mans winner, rotary turbo engine and RX-7 is hailed as the best rotary car ever. So that's it. The RX-7 Spirit R Type A's will be somehow related to a distant Le Mans winner. Yes, again, the Mazda badge will never be put on the same league as the McLaren badge. But is 1 to 200 a fair ratio? As the 95-5 leans towards the 85-15% split, we can just assume, say, in 5 years, the value ratio will be down to 1 to 150. Seems fair? And for sure, McLaren F1 will keep on rising as everyone knows its unbeatable status. So this is what we have in 2026. McLaren will easily be $25 million. Factor in the 1 to 150 value ratio, so the RX-7 maybe, logically, fairly easily will be $166,000. That's a 66% gain in 5 years. See our drift? So this similar logic can apply to Honda and F1. Mitsubishi, Subaru, Toyota, and WRC. Just like a fine wine, these Japanese brands just need a longer aging time before more and more people will realize what they are. They are not the premium brands, but for what they are, their racing success, their heritage, they are undervalued to their European counterparts. Let's take another pair for comparison. 488 Pista versus NSX NA2R. Now at today's value, they're both around $350,000 US. And yes, we know most of you would prefer the prancing horse, but think of it this way. A 488 Pista sits in a very low position in the brand's food chain. Look, you have these many more desirable and special edition modern Ferraris on top of it. And yes, you can finally join the Ferrari Owners Club with your Pista, but there are far more important collectors who own most of these, plus an FXXK, plus even a Schumacher F1, the VIPs of their Corse Cliente program. You are just another owner in their database. On the other hand, you are owning the best of the VTEC Honda cars ever. If you go to the annual Suzuka NSX meeting, you will already have the best of the best. You see the difference in status? For the same amount of money, you are buying just another Ferrari versus arguably the best sports cars from Japan. Oh yes, not to mention only 150 NA2 NSXRs were ever produced versus 3,500 units for the 488 Pista. Putting brand and driving enjoyment aside, purely as an investment angle, for sure, the NSXR will appreciate more. Here comes the fun bit, and let's think big. Say you want to buy all of the iconic Japanese cars. How much would that cost you? And again, please do not roast us for not putting a certain car on the list. But we think this might be the ultimate JDM garage. We are breaking the above $1 million rule also just to show off the most comprehensive and desirable collection. The grand total of what you are looking at is $6.74 million. What you have here is the best of the best Japanese car collection. For around the same money, you can buy one CLK GTR Roadster from Mercedes-Benz. Which side do you prefer? Of course, you can also mix and match a lot of cars for $6.74 million, but we just want to present you with the visual impact of this JDM gang. Let us know what you prefer in the comments. Now, let's think even bigger. What if you want to buy all of these Japanese cars? Not one of each, but all the cars in production. The grand total is around $1.17 billion, and you can monopolize the iconic JDM car market. That is a lot of money, but let us throw you a very interesting fact. Take one Porsche 993 Turbo as an example. 5,937 cars made, and one decent air-cooled classic Porsche, right? If we take the global average of a good example, they're around $200,000. If we were to buy all 993 turbos, then the total is $1.18 billion. Can you believe it? The market cap of all these Japanese cars is the same as one generation of a Porsche 911 Turbo. If you were an investor, the choice is pretty obvious and simple. You are buying the top of the crop legendary Nippon cult cars. So what we see here is value. They do lack prestige and heritage, but these cars represent an undeniable years of underdog grassroots car culture. And have you realized the heyday of Japanese motoring is around the 90s and early 2000s? That is it. With electric cars taking over the world, what you are looking at might very well be the best Japanese cars can offer, at least for a few decades to come. Meanwhile, the rest of the world's brands had such a long history, plus they are coming up with limited edition cars every month these days. The supply and demand factor will favor the Japanese cars as time further ticks away. So yes, we do see an opportunity. Will the Japanese cars be as expensive as the top prestigious brands? Never. But for what they are, they might have some good room for appreciation. What do you think? Do our assumptions make any sense, or are we way off? What Japanese iconic cars did we miss? Let us know what you think in the comments, as we would love for you to join the discussion.